The butterflies on my purple dress mocked me. 7 years old, teddy bear clutched so tight its stuffing threatened to burst, and the air in our living room crackled with a cold, quiet finality. Deidre and Marcus sat across from me, their faces masks of strained neutrality. "Alara," Deidre began, her voice a practiced calm that grated against my small child senses. "Mommy and Daddy aren't going to live together anymore. No tears, no raised voices, just a clinical severing. A split so clean, it felt surgical. They were divvying up their lives, and I was a line item on a spreadsheet. The house stayed with Deidre. Marcus found some soulless apartment downtown. And I got 2 bedrooms, one at each location. A consolation prize for a broken home. The financial support was ironclad, courtesy of Marcus's guilt, or maybe his need to control the narrative. I didn't cry then. I probably didn't even fully understand. But the seed of resentment, of feeling like a burden rather than a beloved child, was planted deep that day. A year after the axe fell, Marcus met Vivian. I remember the sterile light of that diner, the smell of frying grease clinging to everything. Vivian had a smile that reached her eyes, and her son, Finn, was a miniature tornado of energy, barely contained in his booster seat. "Hi, Alara," Vivian greeted me, her gaze genuinely warm. "Your dad has told me so much about you." Finn, mid-French fry massacre, looked up. "Are you going to be my sister?" There was no pretense with Vivian. No saccharine sweetness, no desperate attempt to impress. She was simply real. And Finn, 3 years younger than me, offered a spark of something I craved, a sibling connection. Around the same time, Deidre started seeing Marcus. He moved in with alarming speed, and Deidre changed. She became distracted, almost ethereal, constantly touching her stomach as if guarding a secret. Then came the wedding. A quick courthouse affair, devoid of fanfare. 2 months later, Chloe arrived. My half-sister. I stood in that sterile hospital room, staring at the tiny pink bundle in Deidre's arms. Marcus hovered, utterly consumed. I felt like an unwanted extra in a portrait, a picture of a family I no longer belonged to. Marcus and Vivian's wedding was different. It pulsed with genuine emotion, a celebration of blending, not replacing. They made sure Finn and I felt included in every decision. Vivian even let me help choose her dress. During the vows, Marcus choked up. "Today, I'm not just gaining a wife," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm gaining another child to love. And our 2 amazing kids are gaining a bigger family." That night, Vivian tucked me into bed in my newly decorated room at their house. She kissed my forehead. "You know, Alara, I always wanted a daughter. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life." I hugged her tight, knowing that even though my family was fractured, I had found a sanctuary, a place where I belonged. Life at Deidre's house after Chloe's birth became a slow fade. Not dramatic, not cruel, but insidious. I was slowly erased, becoming a ghost in my own home. Deidre quit her job, transforming into a full-time, baby-obsessed mother. Everything revolved around Chloe. At first, I excused it. Of course, a baby needed more attention. But the months turned into years, and the forgetting started. Small things at first. Forgetting to pack my lunch. Sending me to school in the wrong uniform. Then bigger ones. I remember standing outside school in the pouring rain, watching other kids leave with their parents after parent-teacher conferences. Mrs. Johnson, my 4th grade teacher, waited with me for almost an hour before calling Deidre. "Oh God, was that today?" Deidre's voice crackled through the phone. "I'm so sorry, I was at Chloe's mommy and me class. Can we reschedule?" We never rescheduled. Marcus just picked me up that day, barely glancing at me as he drove home, barking work orders into his cell phone the entire time. My 10th birthday was the breaking point. I woke up excited, a childish optimism still flickering. I ran downstairs, expecting at least a happy birthday from Deidre. Instead, I found her cooing over Chloe in the kitchen. Mom? I said, hovering in the doorway. Do you know what day it is? She looked up, distracted. Tuesday. Oh, I need to take Chloe to her doctor's appointment. My heart sank. It's my birthday. Her eyes widened, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. Oh, Alara. I'm so sorry. We'll celebrate this weekend, okay? I just have so much going on today with Chloe's checkup. The weekend came and went. No mention of my birthday. No cake, no presents, no recognition. Just silence. It became easier to spend time at Marcus's house. Vivian always stocked my favorite snacks. Finn and I would lose ourselves in video games or struggle through homework together. Marcus never missed a school event, and Vivian often tagged along, snapping pictures and beaming like a proud mother. A few days at Marcus's turned into weeks, then months. Deidre barely seemed to notice. She was always busy with Chloe, feeding her, playing with her, chauffeuring her to playdates. Marcus would come home from work, peck Chloe on the forehead, and retreat to his home office. I wondered if they'd even notice if I vanished completely. After about 6 months of me practically living at Marcus's full time, he decided to make it official. I called your mom today, he told me one evening. I think it makes sense for you to live here permanently. You're already here most of the time anyway. And I told her I'd stop the alimony payments since I'm taking care of you full time now. The carefully constructed peace shattered. Within hours, Deidre was at the door, her face a mask of manufactured concern. Sweetie, I've missed you so much, she gushed, hugging me for the first time in what felt like forever. I've been thinking about everything, and I want us to go back to our original arrangement. I want you home with me half the time like before. I was 12 by then, old enough to see through the charade, the sudden concern, the saccharine promises. It wasn't about missing me. It was about the money. Marcus's alimony checks were the real reason she wanted me back. I felt like a pawn in a game that I never signed up to play. Chloe, now 5, started twisting the knife. She'd follow me around the house with this smug little smile, dropping her bombs when Deidre and Marcus weren't within earshot. Marcus says, "You're not really part of our family," she told me one day while I was struggling with algebra homework at the kitchen table. He says you're just visiting. I tried to ignore her, focusing on my quadratic equations. But she kept pushing. Deidre and Marcus love me more than you. She paused, savoring the cruelty. Last night, Marcus told Deidre he was tired of you being here. And Deidre said, just wait until she turns 18. Then the money stops and she'll be gone. It hurt, of course. But I'd learned to build walls. I had Marcus and Vivian, who showed me what real family looked like. I had Finn, who was more of a sibling to me than Chloe ever would be. Still, hearing your own mother practically counting down the days until she didn't have to deal with you anymore. That leaves scars, invisible but deep. The years crawled by, each one a testament to my resilience. Finally, I made it to high school graduation. I sat between my two families during the ceremony. Marcus, Vivian, and Finn on one side, radiating pride and support. Deidre, Marcus, and Chloe on the other, their expressions a mixture of indifference and thinly veiled impatience. It felt like sitting between two different worlds. After the ceremony, Marcus crushed me in a bear hug. "We're so proud of you, Princess." Meanwhile, Deidre and Marcus were already discussing my departure, before we even left the school parking lot. "So," Marcus said, jingling his car keys, "have you started packing yet?" They didn't ask about my college plans. Didn't care that I'd gotten into the prestigious finance program at State University with a partial scholarship. Didn't even pretend to be interested in my future. They just wanted to know when I'd be out of their hair. 2 weeks later, I moved my belongings to Marcus's house. The final severing. I remember sitting in their living room, heart pounding, about to ask Marcus for help with college expenses. Even though I knew he'd never refuse, the years of feeling like a burden had taken their toll. "Marcus," I began, fiddling with the acceptance letter in my hands. "I got accepted to State University. I got a partial scholarship, but Before I could finish, Marcus and Vivian exchanged a knowing glance and smiled. "We've already got it covered, honey," Vivian said, pulling out a meticulously organized folder. "We've been saving for your college fund since you were 8. Relief washed over me in a tidal wave. It was more than just the money, it was the validation. The knowledge that they had always believed in me. I spent that summer working at the Silver Spoon Cafe, scraping every penny I could save. My shifts were mostly morning ones, leaving my afternoons free to spend time with my real family. Finn and I would go to movies, arguing over which snacks to buy. Vivian patiently taught me how to cook proper meals, preparing me for the culinary wasteland of dorm life. And Marcus, well, Marcus just kept being Marcus. Always there with advice, a listening ear, a comforting hug when I needed it most. Deidre never called to ask about my plans, never stopped by to see how I was doing, never seemed to care that her oldest daughter was about to leave for college. But by then, I'd stopped expecting her to care. I was already carving out my own path, forging my own family. College life was a sensory overload of new faces and overwhelming experiences. My dorm room was tiny but cozy, and my roommate, Jenny, was pleasant enough. But we never became close friends, more like polite acquaintances navigating shared space. Between classes, study sessions, and my part-time job at the campus cafe to offset my expenses, I barely had time to breathe. Still, I made sure to call Marcus and Vivian at least twice a week, catching up on their lives and sharing snippets of my own. They came to visit whenever their schedules allowed, Finn dutifully tagging along, grumbling good-naturedly about lugging my overflowing laundry basket, but never failing to bring my favorite homemade cookies from Vivian. In stark contrast, Deidre remained a ghost in my life. Not a single phone call, not a text message, not even a fleeting acknowledgement of my existence. My 19th birthday came and went without so much as a digital happy birthday from her. I knew I shouldn't have checked my phone that day, shouldn't have allowed a flicker of hope to ignite within me. But old habits die hard, and a small part of me still yearned for her acceptance, her approval. That night, fueled by self-pity and a reckless disregard for my emotional well-being, I made the colossal mistake of venturing onto her Facebook page. What awaited me was a curated gallery of saccharine perfection, dozens of professionally shot photos depicting Deidre, Marcus, and Chloe in various stages of blissful domesticity. Beach vacations bathed in golden sunlight, Chloe's dance recitals adorned with floral bouquets, elaborate family dinners showcasing perfectly arranged place settings, and meticulously staged holiday celebrations brimming with forced cheer. Each photo was accompanied by captions brimming with nauseating platitudes about family time, unconditional love, and cherishing every moment. Of course, I wasn't in any of them. I had been systematically cropped out of their family portrait long ago, relegated to the role of an inconvenient memory best left forgotten. The stark contrast between their carefully constructed facade and my own fractured reality sent a searing wave of pain through me, a sharp reminder of my perceived inadequacy. Fueled by a potent cocktail of resentment and self-loathing, I threw myself into my studies with a renewed sense of purpose. I became a driven, almost obsessive student, poring over textbooks late into the night and pushing myself to excel in every class. I was determined to prove to myself, and perhaps subconsciously to them, that I didn't need their validation to succeed, that I could carve my own path to happiness and fulfillment despite their indifference. The years seemed to accelerate, blurring into a montage of late-night study sessions, demanding professors, and the relentless pressure to maintain a perfect GPA. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage to receive my diploma in financial analysis, a tangible symbol of my hard work and perseverance. As I accepted the coveted piece of paper, a wave of triumphant emotion washed over me. Marcus erupted in cheers so loud and unrestrained, you'd have thought I'd won an Olympic medal. His unbridled enthusiasm and genuine pride in my accomplishments filled me with a warmth that radiated from the inside out. He had always been my rock, my unwavering source of support, and his presence on this momentous occasion meant the world to me. Following the graduation ceremony, amidst the throng of proud parents and excited graduates, Vivian approached me with a proposition that would alter the trajectory of my professional life. Her brother, David, ran a highly successful investment firm in our hometown, a company renowned for its innovative strategies and commitment to fostering young talent. She had, in casual conversation, mentioned my outstanding academic achievements to him, and he had expressed a keen interest in meeting me. The interview with David was a unique blend of professional rigor and unexpected warmth. He possessed a sharp intellect and a keen eye for talent, but there was also a disarming sincerity in his demeanor that reminded me of Vivian. He got straight to the point, grilling me on my academic performance, my understanding of financial markets, and my long-term career aspirations, but he also made me feel at ease, creating an environment where I could confidently articulate my strengths and ambitions. "Your credentials are undeniably impressive," he conceded, reviewing my resume with a discerning eye. "But I need to be unequivocally clear about something. The fact that you are my sister's stepdaughter will not earn you any preferential treatment here. You will have to prove yourself, just like every other aspiring analyst who walks through these doors. I trust you understand. I wouldn't want it any other way," I replied with unwavering conviction, my voice radiating a steely determination. "I am eager to earn my place at your firm through hard work, dedication, and demonstrable results." My unwavering confidence and eagerness to learn impressed David, and I received an offer of employment shortly thereafter. I eagerly accepted the position, thrilled at the opportunity to embark on my career journey at such a reputable and forward-thinking organization. I rented a small, one-bedroom apartment near the office, a modest space that reflected my pragmatic approach to finances. It wasn't lavish or extravagant, but it was mine, a tangible symbol of my independence and a sanctuary where I could recharge after long days at work. I immersed myself in my new role with an almost obsessive fervor. I worked harder than I'd ever worked before, volunteering for projects that no one else wanted to touch, staying late into the night to refine financial models, and meticulously crafting comprehensive growth strategies for our clients. I was driven by an unyielding desire to prove my worth, to demonstrate that I was more than just Vivian's stepdaughter. The results spoke for themselves. Client portfolios under my management consistently outperformed market benchmarks, generating remarkable returns and solidifying the firm's reputation for excellence. The company's revenue increased significantly, and David noticed my contributions, acknowledging my hard work and dedication with increasing frequency. While he steadfastly refused to play favorites, David was a firm believer in rewarding merit. The bonuses and raises came, not because of my familial connection to his sister, but because I had unequivocally earned them through my unwavering commitment to excellence. The financial rewards were gratifying, but the validation of my skills and the recognition of my contributions were even more meaningful. The very first thing I did with my surprise year-end bonus was purchase gifts for my real family, tokens of my appreciation for their unwavering support and unconditional love. A state-of-the-art golf set for Marcus, who had been stubbornly clinging to the same outdated clubs for the past 15 years. A luxurious spa weekend package for Vivian, who tirelessly dedicated her life to caring for others but rarely indulged in self-care. And the latest gaming console for Finn, who was still using the hand-me-down system he'd received back in high school. Watching them open their gifts, witnessing their genuine happiness and surprise, a profound sense of contentment settled in my chest. I may have been systematically excluded from one family photo album, but I had successfully carved out my own space in a far more meaningful one. The love and support I received from Marcus, Vivian, and Finn were unconditional, and their presence in my life was a constant reminder that I was valued, cherished, and truly belonged. After 5 years of relentless dedication and unwavering commitment to my career, I had meticulously crafted a solid financial plan, a blueprint for achieving my long-term goals and securing my future. Every month, with unwavering discipline, I diligently set aside a significant portion of my salary into a dedicated savings account, patiently accumulating the funds necessary to realize my dream of homeownership. I diligently researched the housing market in my hometown, poring over listings, attending open houses, and consulting with real estate experts. I wasn't seeking a lavish mansion or an ostentatious display of wealth, but rather a modest and comfortable dwelling where I could create a sanctuary, a place to call my own. A small garden, a cozy fireplace, and a sun-drenched living room were the only luxuries I craved. Above all, I was determined to make a substantial down payment on my future home, a financial strategy designed to keep my monthly mortgage payments manageable and minimize the overall interest I would accrue over the life of the loan. It was a prudent and calculated approach, a reflection of my financial acumen and unwavering commitment to long-term security. Then came the phone call that shattered the carefully constructed facade of my life, a jarring intrusion that would unravel my meticulously laid plans and expose the festering wounds of my past. I was engrossed in reviewing quarterly reports at my desk, my brow furrowed in concentration as I analyzed complex financial data and formulated strategic recommendations for our clients. The rhythmic clicking of the keyboard and the low hum of the office air conditioner were the only sounds that pierced the afternoon calm. Suddenly, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number, a cryptic sequence of digits that triggered a faint sense of unease. Hesitantly, I answered the call, bracing myself for a potential telemarketer or an unsolicited sales pitch. "Ilara, sweetie?" A voice crooned on the other end of the line, a voice that sent a shiver of recognition down my spine. "It's Deidre. I've been thinking about you so much lately." My grip tightened on the phone, my knuckles turning white. 9 long years of deafening silence, and now this? This saccharine sweetness, this transparent attempt at reconciliation. It was jarring, disorienting, and utterly infuriating. Summoning every ounce of self-control I possessed, I forced my voice to remain neutral, devoid of emotion. "How are you, Deidre?" "Oh, honey, I miss you terribly," she replied, her voice dripping with an artificial warmth that did little to mask the underlying manipulation. "We all do. Why don't you come over for dinner this weekend? Chloe's home from college, and Marcus is making his famous pot roast. It would be just like old times." Despite my reservations, despite the lingering resentment and the deep-seated distrust, curiosity gnawed at me, an irresistible urge to see what Deidre was up to after all these years. Against my better judgment, I relented. That Saturday, I found myself driving down familiar streets, navigating the winding roads that led to my childhood home. As I approached the driveway, a wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. A pang of nostalgia for the innocence of my youth, a surge of resentment for the neglect and indifference I had endured, and a cautious flicker of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, Deidre had genuinely changed. I parked my car, a sleek but understated Mercedes, a tangible symbol of my hard work and financial independence. It wasn't flashy or ostentatious, but it was reliable and professional, a reflection of my pragmatic approach to life. As I stepped out of the vehicle, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever awaited me inside. I walked purposefully towards the front door and rang the bell. Chloe answered the door, her eyes raking over me with a poorly concealed mixture of curiosity and disdain. She had grown into a striking young woman, her features a refined version of Deidre's, but there was a coldness in her gaze that sent a chill down my spine. "Nice car," she said, her tone laced with sarcasm. It was less a greeting and more an assessment, a silent judgment of my material possessions. I ignored her comment and stepped inside the house. The interior was virtually unchanged, a preserved snapshot of the past. The same worn furniture, the same outdated decor, the same family photos adorning the walls, each one a stark reminder of my systematic exclusion from their narrative. Deidre rushed forward to greet me, enveloping me in a hug that felt both suffocating and insincere. She acted as if we had seen each other just yesterday, her words dripping with syrupy affection. "Darling, you look fantastic," she gushed, her eyes appraising my tailored suit with undisguised interest. "So professional in that suit. Isn't she successful, Marcus?" Marcus nodded curtly, pulling out a chair for me at the dining table. He seemed less enthusiastic, his gaze guarded and calculating. "We heard you're doing very well at David's company," he said, his tone neutral. "The family grapevine says you're one of their top performers." Throughout dinner, they peppered me with questions about my job, my salary, my car, my apartment. They were insatiably curious about my financial success, their eyes gleaming with thinly veiled envy. Deidre kept interjecting with comments about how expensive everything was these days, particularly with Chloe in college. "That's such a beautiful watch," Deidre commented, reaching for my wrist. "Must have cost a fortune." I smiled politely, resisting the urge to snatch my hand away. It was a birthday gift from Marcus and Vivian, a timeless piece that I cherished. "It was a gift," I replied, my voice carefully measured. "Of course it was," Deidre said, her smile tightening slightly. "They always did spoil you." The atmosphere grew increasingly strained as the evening wore on. The dinner, which had begun under the guise of a heartfelt reunion, quickly devolved into a veiled interrogation, a subtle probing of my financial resources. I felt like a specimen under a microscope, dissected and analyzed for my perceived wealth. The initial invitation to dinner morphed into a series of increasingly frequent requests for my presence at family gatherings. Deidre would call me regularly, stop by my apartment unannounced with Chloe in tow, and extend invitations to elaborate dinners at their house. It was a relentless barrage of attention, an insistent attempt to insinuate herself back into my life. Chloe, in particular, would wander around my modest apartment, examining everything with a calculating eye. She would comment on the size, the decor, the lack of extravagant furnishings, her remarks dripping with thinly veiled disdain. "This place is kind of small," she commented once, her tone bordering on insulting. "I thought you made good money." I kept my responses vague, refusing to be drawn into her petty attempts at provocation. "It suits my needs," I would reply calmly. "But surely you're planning to upgrade soon, with your salary?" Deidre would chime in, her voice laced with thinly veiled suggestion. I would simply smile and deftly change the subject, deflecting their relentless inquiries with practiced ease. There was something about their sudden interest in my life that made me deeply uneasy, a sense that they were plotting something, that their motives were far more sinister than a simple desire for reconciliation. I sensed that I was being lured into a carefully constructed trap, and I knew that I had to tread carefully to avoid falling victim to their machinations. The inevitable confrontation arrived on a seemingly innocuous Sunday afternoon. Chloe had come over to my apartment under the pretense of wanting to bond with her big sister, an assertion that I found both laughable and deeply suspect. I was in the kitchen making coffee, my back turned to Chloe, when I heard her gasp from the living room, a sharp intake of breath that sent a jolt of unease through me. "Oh my God," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of shock and avarice. "Is that really how much money you have saved?" I felt a surge of panic rise within me as I realized what had happened. I had been careless, leaving my laptop open on the coffee table after paying some bills. The banking app was still running, displaying the details of my savings account, including the current balance. I quickly walked over and closed the laptop, snapping the screen shut with a decisive click. "It's not polite to look at other people's private information, Chloe," I said, my voice laced with a subtle warning. She completely ignored my admonishment, her eyes still wide with disbelief. "Why are you saving so much?" she pressed, her curiosity outweighing her sense of propriety. "What's it for?" I hesitated for a moment, weighing the pros and cons of divulging my plans to her. Ultimately, I decided that there was no real harm in sharing my aspirations with my sister. "I'm planning to buy a house soon," I replied, my voice calm and measured. I want to make a good down payment to keep the mortgage payments reasonable. Chloe simply nodded, her expression inscrutable, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. There was a calculating glint in her gaze that made me deeply uncomfortable, a sense that she was processing the information and formulating a plan of her own. She left shortly after, making some flimsy excuse about meeting friends. I watched her go, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just made a grave mistake, that I had unwittingly revealed a vulnerability that would be exploited against me. The very next day, my suspicions were confirmed. Deidre called me, her voice unusually solicitous, and invited me to dinner that evening. As soon as I sat down at their dining table, I knew that something was amiss. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and Deidre had that familiar look in her eyes, the one she used to get when she was about to ask Marcus for more child support. "Chloe tells me you're quite the saver," Deidre said, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that made my skin crawl. "That's wonderful, honey. You know, Chloe's having such a hard time with college expenses, and she'll need to find an apartment after graduation. It's all so expensive these days, and she's just starting out in her career. It would be so nice if her successful big sister could help her out." I took a bite of my food, chewing slowly and deliberately, saying nothing. I knew exactly where this conversation was headed, and I braced myself for the inevitable request. "Family helping family, you know," Deidre continued, her voice laced with thinly veiled manipulation. I finally put down my fork, my appetite completely gone. "I don't understand what you're getting at, Deidre," I said, my voice firm but polite. "Oh, come on, Alara," she said, dropping the pretense of sweetness. "You're clearly doing very well for yourself. Chloe needs help with an apartment, and you have more than enough money saved up. It would be the right thing to do." I looked at her incredulously, a wave of disbelief washing over me. "The right thing to do? You mean give Chloe my house down payment?" "Well, you're already established in your career," Marcus chimed in, his voice smoothly persuasive. "Chloe's just starting out. She needs the help more than you do." "I'm not established," I said firmly, my voice rising in anger. "I'm working hard and saving my money to build my own future. I'm not giving Chloe my savings." Deidre's face darkened, her eyes flashing with resentment. "So you're just going to let your sister struggle while you sit on a pile of money?" She spat, her voice venomous. "After all we've done for you?" I almost laughed at that, the absurdity of her statement washing over me. "All you've done for me? Like what exactly? Forget my birthdays? Ignore me for years? Push me aside for Chloe?" "You're being selfish," Marcus muttered, not quite meeting my eyes. "A real sister would want to help," Deidre added, her voice laced with self-righteous indignation. "A real mother would have been there for both her daughters." I shot back, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and pain. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I'm taking care of myself first," I declared, my voice resolute. "Chloe is your responsibility, not mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Deidre sat there, jaw clenched, her face contorted with rage. Marcus glared at his plate, his expression a mixture of guilt and resentment. Chloe wasn't at the dinner, but I could imagine her reaction when they told her later, poor Chloe, whose selfish big sister wouldn't give her a free apartment. I turned and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I knew that I had just burned a bridge, severing the last tenuous connection to my mother and sister. But I also knew that I had made the right decision, that I had protected myself from further exploitation and manipulation. I was finally free. 2 weeks after that disastrous dinner, I had to leave for a crucial business trip to Singapore. David had entrusted me with an incredibly important client presentation, a high-stakes opportunity that could significantly elevate my standing within the firm. The demanding schedule and the drastic time difference meant that I would be largely out of contact for the duration of the trip, a sacrifice I was willing to make to advance my career. "I'll be gone for about 10 days, I told Deidre when she called. attempting to maintain some semblance of politeness despite our recent acrimonious exchange. Just letting you know I'll be out of contact. Oh, overseas, huh? She replied, her voice strangely interested. How nice for you. The trip itself was a blur of intense meetings, meticulous preparation, and sleepless nights fueled by caffeine and adrenaline. I poured every ounce of my energy into perfecting the presentation, determined to impress the client and justify David's faith in my abilities. The presentation was a resounding success, exceeding all expectations and solidifying the firm's relationship with the client. I returned from Singapore exhausted but exhilarated, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. However, as soon as I turned off airplane mode after landing, my phone exploded with a barrage of notifications, a relentless stream of alerts that sent a cold wave of dread washing over me. Banking alerts, dozens of them, each one more alarming than the last. My hands started shaking uncontrollably as I scrolled through the list, my heart pounding in my chest. Account transfer, $1,750. Account transfer, $3,200. Account transfer, $5,000. The numbers blurred before my eyes, each one a devastating blow to my sense of security. The world started spinning, the airport terminal fading into a hazy blur. I felt a surge of nausea rise within me, threatening to overwhelm me. I needed to get home, to understand what was happening, to assess the damage. I rushed home, my mind racing with a mixture of fear and disbelief. I threw open the door to my apartment, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the keys. The usually comforting space felt cold and violated, a chilling reminder of my vulnerability. I threw open my laptop and logged into my banking app, my fingers shaking so badly that I could barely type in my password. There it was, displayed in stark detail on the screen. A massive transfer, draining the vast majority of my savings, all of it funneled into an account that I didn't recognize. My breath hitched in my throat as I stared at the name associated with the transfer, Patricia Warren. Deidre's full name. A surge of rage, hot and blinding, coursed through me. I grabbed my phone and dialed their number, my hands shaking so violently that I could barely hold the device steady. No answer. I slammed the phone down in frustration and stormed out of the apartment, my mind made up. I was going to confront them, to demand an explanation, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I drove to their house like a woman possessed, speeding through the streets, my mind consumed by anger and betrayal. When I arrived, I pounded on the door with a ferocity that startled even me. Marcus answered the door, a smug look on his face that made my blood boil. "What do you want, Alara?" he said, his voice laced with disdain. "Where is she?" I demanded, pushing past him into the house. Deidre was sitting in the living room, calm as could be, flipping through a magazine as if nothing were amiss. "Oh, you're back," she said, her voice casual. "How was your trip?" I thrust my phone in her face, the banking app screenshots pulled up on the screen. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice trembling with rage. "How did you transfer money from my account?" She barely glanced at the screen, her expression unchanging. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice dismissive. "Don't lie to me!" I shouted, my voice rising in fury. "It's right here, a transfer to your account. How did you do it?" Deidre finally dropped the innocent act, putting down her magazine and looking at me with a cold, calculating gaze. "Fine, yes, I transferred the money," she said, her voice devoid of remorse. "Chloe needs an apartment, and you weren't being cooperative, so we helped ourselves." "How did you even get into my apartment?" I stammered, my voice shaking with disbelief. Deidre reached into her purse and held up a key, dangling it in front of my face. "Remember when I borrowed your bathroom that day I visited?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It only takes a minute to make a copy." I felt sick to my stomach, the realization of their betrayal washing over me in a wave of nausea. They had planned this, orchestrated it with meticulous precision. They had feigned concern and invited me back into their lives only to exploit me, to steal from me, to use me for their own selfish purposes. Give me my money back now, or I'm going to the police, I threatened, my voice trembling with anger. Deidre actually laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Don't be ridiculous, she said, her eyes glittering with malice. You won't go to the police. I'm your mother. Besides, you can always save up again. You have a good job, no responsibilities. Chloe needs this more than you do. We've already found her the perfect apartment. I am serious. I cut her off, my voice rising in desperation. Return my money or what, Alara? Deidre sneered. You'll send your own mother to jail? Please. You don't have the spine. Marcus grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong, and started pushing me toward the door. I think it's time for you to leave. This is your last chance, I warned them, my voice cracking with desperation. Give me back my money. Deidre's only response was to wave goodbye with a sickly sweet smile, her eyes glinting with triumphant malice. Marcus shoved me out onto the porch and slammed the door in my face, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. I stood there for a moment, stunned and humiliated, before turning and walking away, the weight of their betrayal crushing me. The police station was eerily quiet that night, the fluorescent lights casting long, harsh shadows across the linoleum floor. I sat across from Detective Martinez, a seasoned officer with a kind face and weary eyes, my hand steady as I filled out the complaint form. I had meticulously gathered every piece of evidence: the unauthorized transfer screenshots from my banking app, the text messages with Deidre about my business trip, even a detailed log of all the times they had visited my apartment in recent weeks. Detective Martinez listened patiently as I recounted the events leading up to the theft, his expression growing increasingly grim as he absorbed the details of my mother's betrayal. I have everything documented, I told him, my voice unwavering. I want to press charges. I want them held accountable for what they've done. Detective Martinez nodded, his eyes filled with empathy. We'll do everything we can to help you, Miss Warren, he said, his voice reassuring. This is a serious offense, and we'll pursue it to the fullest extent of the law. As I left the police station that night, a sense of grim determination settled over me. I knew that it would be a long and difficult process, but I was prepared to fight for justice, to ensure that Deidre and Marcus paid for their crimes. The very same night, my phone rang. It was Marcus, his voice alternating between thinly veiled threats and desperate pleas. You need to withdraw the complaint, he demanded, his voice trembling with anger. Do you have any idea what you're doing to your mother? She's crying. She's a mess. I hung up the phone without a word, severing the last remaining thread of connection to that toxic chapter of my life. Let her cry, I thought bitterly. I'd cried plenty of times over the years because of her, because of their neglect and manipulation. Now it was their turn to face the consequences of their actions. The legal process moved surprisingly quickly, fueled by the overwhelming evidence and Deidre's arrogant admission to the theft. She had confessed to the crime during the initial police interrogation, confident that her status as my mother would shield her from prosecution. She couldn't have been more wrong. The trial was a media circus, attracting the attention of local news outlets and generating a flurry of online commentary. The public was captivated by the story of the successful young woman who had been betrayed by her own mother, the seemingly perfect family shattered by greed and deception. Deidre sat in the courtroom, playing the role of the repentant mother to the hilt. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, her face contorted with manufactured grief, as she promised to return every penny she had stolen. I just wanted to help my younger daughter, she sobbed to the judge, her voice trembling with emotion. I let my maternal instincts cloud my judgment. I never meant to hurt Alara. I love her more than anything in the world. I almost laughed out loud, the absurdity of her performance washing over me. Maternal instincts? Since when? The judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, was not impressed by Deidre's theatrics. "Miss S. Warren," she said, her voice cold and disapproving, "your maternal instincts led you to commit premeditated theft and fraud against your own daughter. You abused your position of trust and betrayed the bond that should have existed between a mother and her child. The only reason you are not going to prison today is that you have agreed to make full restitution and have no prior criminal record." She sentenced Deidre to a suspended sentence, a probationary period of 2 years, and ordered her to return every penny she had stolen from me within 30 days. I also obtained a restraining order against both Deidre and Marcus, just to be safe, ensuring that they could not come near me or attempt to contact me in any way. Marcus and Vivian were my rocks throughout the entire ordeal, unwavering in their support and unconditional love. They sat behind me in court, their presence a constant reminder that I was not alone. They brought me dinner when I was too exhausted to cook, offered words of encouragement when I felt like giving up, and never once uttered the words, "I told you so," about letting Deidre back into my life. "You did the right thing," Vivian told me after the sentencing, her eyes filled with compassion. "They needed to learn that they couldn't take advantage of you anymore, that their actions had consequences." Finn, in his typical fashion, tried to lighten the mood with a dose of irreverent humor. "Well, at least now you know for sure which family actually loves you," he said, grinning mischievously. He was right. The lines were clear now, stark and undeniable. I had my real family, Marcus, Vivian, Finn, even David, who had been incredibly supportive throughout the entire ordeal, offering legal advice and emotional support. And then there were the others, Deidre, Marcus, and Chloe, who had shown their true colors in the most dramatic and devastating way possible. 6 months have passed since then. The dust has settled, and I have begun the slow process of healing and rebuilding my life. My money is back in my account, earning interest as I patiently continue my house hunt. I've got my eye on a charming 3-bedroom colonial with a fenced backyard, a sun-drenched living room, and a cozy fireplace. It's located just 10 minutes away from Marcus and Vivian's place, close enough to maintain our close-knit bond, but far enough to establish my own independence. The mortgage paperwork is being processed, and this time, I'm the only one with the keys to my future. Deidre still tries to reach out sometimes, through distant relatives or mutual acquaintances. She claims that she's changed, that she's sorry for what she's done, that she wants to make amends, but I'm done giving chances to people who see me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Yesterday, I had dinner with my real family to celebrate my upcoming house purchase. As we sat around Marcus and Vivian's dining table, sharing jokes and making plans for my housewarming party, I realized something profound. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into, and sometimes letting go of toxic relationships is the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. In 2 weeks, I'll be signing the papers for my new house, the culmination of years of hard work and unwavering determination. Marcus is already planning to help me paint the walls, and Vivian has been sending me links to furniture she thinks would look perfect in my living room. This is what family should be: people who support you, love you unconditionally, and would never dream of hurting you for their own gain. As for Deidre, Marcus, and Chloe, they can keep their perfect family photos and their manipulative games. I've got something better: a real family, a clear conscience, and soon, a house with exactly 1 set of keys. A house where I can finally feel safe, secure, and loved. A house that I can truly call home.